Are you tired of being disrespected, used, or manipulated in your relationships? The truth is, you're allowing it, but not anymore. In this video, I'll reveal why this keeps happening to you, and more importantly, how to stop it forever. Take control now, before it's too late. Let's begin. The reason manipulation works so effectively is that people don't realize it's happening until they're already deep in it. Manipulation is not loud, obvious, or aggressive. It's subtle, creeping, and insidious. It begins in the smallest ways, with seemingly insignificant compromises, little allowances, harmless exceptions. But before you know it, the boundaries you thought you had become invisible, your sense of self dissolves, and the person manipulating you has complete control. It always starts with attraction, whether emotional, intellectual, or physical. When someone sees that you are impressed by them, they immediately recognize the leverage they have. This is where power dynamics begin. A woman, for instance, knows the extent of her beauty's influence the moment she sees how quickly a man loses his composure around her. A boss, an authority figure, a friend, or a partner, anyone who wants to control you, first needs you to be in awe of them. Because when admiration overshadows self-respect, manipulation becomes inevitable. The next step is small tests of power. They'll gauge how much control they have by subtly challenging your limits. Maybe a woman casually disrespects you in a joking way, making a sharp remark about your appearance, intelligence, or worth. Maybe a friend starts asking for favors without reciprocating. Maybe your partner withdraws affection the moment you express an independent thought that contradicts their own. The first few times, you let it go. It's not worth making a big deal out of it. You tell yourself it's harmless. But this is where you lose. The key to all manipulation is conditioning. You are being conditioned to accept treatment that you would have once rejected outright. You are slowly trained to tolerate disrespect, and the more you tolerate, the deeper the control sets in. It's a slow erosion of self-worth disguised as compromise. You tell yourself you're being understanding, that you're being patient, that relationships require effort. And while all of that is true in healthy relationships, it does not apply to one-sided power plays, where the other person never compromises, never gives, and never meets you at the same level. What's most dangerous about manipulation is that it's never a single grand event. It's a series of tiny decisions that, on their own, seem insignificant, but together completely redefine who you are. One day you realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. The confident, independent, strong version of yourself has been replaced by someone who overthinks every response, constantly questions their own judgment, and hesitates before expressing their own needs out of fear of conflict. This is exactly where manipulators want you: uncertain, doubtful, and dependent. But let's be clear, manipulation is not just about what the other person does. It's also about what you allow. The real question isn't why they manipulate, it's why you allow it. And the answer that lies in your own fears and insecurities. People who tolerate manipulation usually share the same deep-rooted issues: fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough. If someone has been conditioned to believe that love and acceptance are earned through self-sacrifice, they will always be vulnerable to manipulators. They believe that if they just give a little more, tolerate a little more, the other person will finally see their worth. But that never happens, because the moment you show that you are willing to endure mistreatment, you set the precedent for more of it. Manipulators do not choose their victims randomly. They specifically look for people who lack boundaries. If you hesitate to enforce consequences, if you try to justify their bad behavior, if you prioritize the connection over self-respect, you are exactly the type of person they seek out. This is why some people repeatedly find themselves in toxic relationships. It's not coincidence, it's a pattern they haven't broken yet. Understanding manipulation requires understanding power. Every relationship, whether romantic, professional, or social, has an underlying power dynamic. The healthiest relationships are built on balanced power, mutual respect, and shared responsibility. But when manipulation enters the picture, that balance shifts. One person starts dictating the terms while the other conforms. The manipulator ensures that the other person always feels like they are the one responsible for keeping the relationship intact. This is why manipulators never take accountability. If they hurt you, Somehow, it's your fault. You misunderstood, you overreacted, you're too sensitive. They shift blame so skillfully that you start questioning your own reality. This is called gaslighting, and it's one of the most powerful tools in manipulation. If someone can make you doubt your own perceptions, they can control you completely. Gaslighting works because it targets your sense of certainty. The moment you start second-guessing yourself, you become easy to control. If you ever find yourself wondering, maybe I'm the problem, maybe I'm being too dramatic, pause. Because chances are, you're not. And even if you were, a healthy person would discuss it with you directly, not manipulate you into doubting your own thoughts. The solution to escaping manipulation is enforcing boundaries without fear. But this is easier said than done. People who struggle with boundaries usually do so because they were never taught to have them. Many were raised in environments where saying no resulted in punishment, rejection, or guilt. As adults, they carry that same fear into their relationships. They believe that setting boundaries will drive people away. But the truth is, the people who leave when you enforce boundaries are the ones who only benefited from you having none. The way to stop manipulation in its tracks is to immediately call it out and walk away when necessary. The moment you tolerate even the smallest violation of your boundaries, you set a precedent. Manipulators test people to see who they can control, and the more you prove that you can be controlled, the further they will push. Walking away is the single most powerful move you can make against a manipulator. They thrive on control, and nothing terrifies them more than someone who refuses to be controlled. They will do everything to pull you back in: guilt, promises, even temporary change. But it's all part of the cycle. The moment they sense they have control again, they will return to their old ways. The only way to truly escape is to recognize manipulation early and refuse to participate. This means detaching emotionally from people who prove themselves untrustworthy. It means removing yourself from relationships where your needs are consistently ignored. It means choosing self-respect over temporary validation. And most importantly, it means understanding that love, loyalty, and commitment should never come at the cost of your dignity. Most people stay in toxic situations, not because they are happy, but because they are afraid of what happens after leaving. The fear of the unknown is often worse than the suffering they already know. But the truth is, staying in a manipulative relationship doesn't just hurt you, it changes you. It slowly kills your self-worth, your confidence, your ability to trust yourself. The longer you stay, the harder it becomes to walk away. Breaking free from manipulation isn't about revenge, making the other person suffer, or proving a point. It's about reclaiming your power, your time, and your energy. It's about living life on your own terms instead of constantly adjusting yourself to fit someone else's agenda. It's about choosing yourself unapologetically and refusing to settle for anything less than respect. The hardest part isn't leaving, it's staying gone. Manipulators will do everything in their power to pull you back in. They will act like they've changed. They will suddenly become everything you ever wanted them to be. But it's a performance. They are only acting right because they lost control, and the moment they get it back, the cycle restarts. You have to be stronger than your desire for closure. You have to accept that some people will never apologize, never change, never acknowledge what they did to you. And that has to be enough. Your healing doesn't come from their remorse, it comes from your decision to move forward without them. Manipulation only works on those who allow it. And the moment you decide that you will no longer be someone's pawn, their power over you disappears completely.